Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Brady Hay Mortgage Team podcast, where we're focused on building quality relationships with quality people and growing together. Super grateful today. Have the opportunity to have a guest on that, frankly, I admire a lot. He's a good friend of mine, business partner, one of the most dialed in individuals that I've ever met, and just a business owner in general. Pleased to be joined today with Cole Jaeschke, financial advisor with Full Swing Financial.
What an intro, man.
Not bad, huh?
Yeah, man. I wish I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, I mean, I could go into the plethora of titles that you have, right? I mean, you're a financial advisor.
Yep.
You're a podcaster. You're a very
wannabe podcaster.
You're a very average golfer.
That's true.
You're a real estate investor. I don't know what else you want from a title standpoint, but Cole, thanks for joining me today, man.
Yeah, man. It's I always love to have the conversation, and people ask me like what I do, and it's hard to explain, but I've used this word of serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I would say that's definitely definitely a part
that
of
kind of all
title.
encompasses it all, right?
Yeah, a little bit, and then I really think of I have a athletic background of the coaching. Like a lot of my stuff is like I feel like I'm coaching or I have some type of impact on others.
And I can tell you for a fact, I don't know how long or how many years I've known you, but you're making an impact on me, and I'm thankful for that. And I'm excited to kind of dive deeper into what you do and allow you to make an impact on the listeners as well, because I think that you have a ton of knowledge you can share. So even though, yes, this is a mortgage podcast, my heart behind this and why I want to bring you on is to be able to give you a platform, right? To share the little things you've done, the nuances you've learned over your professional career, and really just be a value add for everybody that wants to listen. So excited to dive in.
Yeah. And I do want to, it's always hard when you're talking about yourself, but one thing I always want to, I advise a lot of clients, coach a lot of clients, right? And I always tell them to back off a little bit on the benchmarking, right?
Okay.
Of comparing yourself to someone else. And that's where I always find it like it's optics a lot of times, or you never know what someone else's issues, problems, things that they have going on. So
Sure.
It's always take everything in stride and what matters to you, personally, not always like, oh, this person's doing this, I need to be doing that.
Sure.
And that's always a cautious thing when I start talking about all the stuff I got going on. People are like, well, I don't have all that going on. Well,
doesn't mean you're a lesser of a human.
No doubt about it, right? I choose like kind of have the organized chaos that I have in my life. So.
And you hit the nail on the head there by organized chaos, because I've experienced firsthand all the different things and responsibilities you have on your plate, and the way that you handle it is one of my favorite things, and I'm really excited to dive into that later on, is just frankly how you juggle everything that you put on your own plate. I don't want to say that it's anybody else doing it but yourself, but so just to kind of start things off, kind of give everybody a background on who you are, what do you do, how did you get there, kind of walk us through your journey.
Yep. Well, first and foremost, father and husband.
Number one priority, right?
Those are number one. 2 boys, married, wife Chelsea. But yeah, I mean, I started off. I was thought I was going to be a college football or an NFL football player. That was my first.
To be fair,
love.
You did accomplish.
Yeah.
I got to give you a little bit of props.
Yep. I made it a career for a small period of time, but that after I knew the writing was on the wall, there I'm like, okay, it's time to get the big boy job of what I'm going to do. And I'd known. I'm surrounded by blue-collar entrepreneurs in my family. So I'd seen business owners, basically someone in my family or direct family, all of them are business owners, the majority of them are.
Yeah.
And so I knew that was the route I was probably going to go, but I didn't really want to get into I wanted to be more in a white-collar field.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where, and I was, I took I minored in finance.
Okay.
I was done with my undergrad. But I had redshirted, so I had another year of college or another semester, and I was able to kind of backfill into finance. And I got really interested in hey, I maybe want to be a financial advisor if football doesn't work out.
Sure.
So went down that route, and that's really what catapulted me into the financial advisory world. I had some, I think everything starts with a connection.
Yeah.
I
completely agree.
Someone who knew someone and got me an interview, and I kind of went down that route, and it's just expanded into a much bigger scale.
When I tell you that the mortgage world was the last place that I thought I would end up, I mean that. When I graduated college, I didn't even know what a home loan was, I'll be honest. But it was directly related to, my college advisor connected me with a manager at Wells Fargo, and it just kind of spiraled
like 5
from there.
Yeah, that were all like webbed in there.
Yeah,
that I own
and it just, it's wild how you hit the nail on the head there. That connection was really what started it. And then it's cool how you fall in love and become so passionate about it after it becomes meant to be, right? So, okay, so you you're going through the football world, you're going through college, you kind of think about financing, and right after all of that is when you, if I'm not mistaken, and you can correct me on this, but I believe you started at Principal Financial Group as an advisor. Kind of walk us through your journey throughout the, couple companies you've been through, and why and how, I guess, you landed to current position and what you're passionate about there.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really bring this up, but when I got done with school, I was obviously trying to play professional football, but then I was also debating on being a college football coach.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, but I didn't really, I was ready to like have some money.
Yep.
That was like the thing, is like, that's what
surely helps a lot, right?
I was going to be a grad assistant, and I was going to have to go back to school, and I did not want to go to school anymore. I was done with school. So that's what, after football, I knew wasn't going to work. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be a college football coach.
Okay.
And then I originally was going to go to, Edward Jones had a training program that they no longer have.
Okay.
But they were going to require me to live in Tempe for 6 to 9 months.
Great place, what I've heard.
It is a great place, but again, it was kind of those things, is like, I felt like I was going back to school doing that. I wanted to get like some life experience.
You were ready to get going.
Yep. I'm a trial and error guy.
And you were with your wife already at that point, right? So life had kind of already started in that side of things, and
that had a big influence.
She wasn't putting any pressure on you, I'm sure.
She was the breadwinner there for the.
I know.
Thank God. She really kept us afloat the first 4 or 5 years. She did a great job, and the stability. But that's where I decided not to go to Edward Jones right away. So it would circle back. I'd come back there later.
Yeah.
But I had a connection with some advisor to Principal.
Okay.
I got on there. I got some experience of like just, hey, what the world was, that the financial advisory world's about. I spent about a year with Principal, and then I basically went right back to the spot I was going to be at Edward Jones, except I didn't have to go through the training program because I was licensed.
It works out great then.
And I knew that. I kind of went knowing, hey, I can just kind of skip this step.
Yeah.
And I had a mentor at Edward Jones for my first 5 to 7 years. Really taught me a lot in the business. And if I can echo or share some advice to any listener, and most people know this, is like, you gotta have connection, relationships, and find that person.
Yeah.
You're always trying to elevate your relationships, right? Or you never want to be the smartest person in the room, because then you're probably not around very smart people.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, if you can elevate, and where you're not the smartest in the room, or you can strive to try to be. And if it wasn't for Dean Dozier's his name, but he
shout out Dean.
Yeah, he really showed me how to
move the needle there.
How to work with clients and really get into what it is to be a financial advisor.
Would love to have you touch on that, because from afar, my assumption is that there's kind of two sides of being a financial advisor. Number one is actually advising your clients, right? Like, so once you have the client relationship, you have to have the knowledge of like, hey, here's, based on your plan and your goals and your desires, here's what you should advise in. However, the part that probably doesn't get enough attention is you are very much self-employed, and people aren't walking in your front door every day saying, hey, I got all this money, I need to invest it, right? So I would love to have you chat through both sides of that, where it's like, hey, here's how I learned how to advise people on what to invest in and how to achieve their goals, but also talk about like, how'd you make the phone ring?
It just gave me a little flashback of like, so when you started Edward Jones and how I started, everyone has to go through, they have a really, really standardized training process that's very, like, here's what you do, how you do it. And it's really, really good. But
it's been proven, probably.
You have to door knock. So I door knocked for my first 6 weeks when I joined Edward Jones. I basically had to door knock and get enough numbers to go back to the home office. You went to their home office, did a week of training. Yeah. And that was called Field Foundations. You went out for 6 weeks, and you basically had to introduce yourself. They taught you how to introduce yourself and get numbers and permission.
So you're knocking on people's doors. You have no clue who they are.
For 6 weeks.
So you don't know if they have any money.
No. Talk about a humbling experience when you're knocking.
How many doors do you think you knocked on?
Thousands. A couple thousand.
All, because I know at this point, and for context, you were in Jefferson at this time, right?
Yep. And I did some other areas.
I was going to say,
I knocked on every house in Jefferson, I think, probably. I bet I knocked on every door.
What was your success rate looking like there? Like,
it was.
And by success, let's start with just a conversation and not a door slam.
And that was normally what it was, is not really, you weren't like trying to get business that way. It was more like introducing, hey, I'm going to have an office in town. Yeah. I just want to get my name out there. Here's, maybe a flyer on the 6 things that we provide.
So that's a good selling point, and sorry to cut you off.
No,
but
you're good.
The point that I'd like to drive home there is, it's not like you were knocking on their door and immediately saying, hey, trust me with your money. It's like, hey, my name's Cole. I'm a business owner here, and I care a lot about this community and want to help them grow, right?
It's exactly like that's something that someone would say.
So you're not going in and selling right away. Nope. You're jumping in and you're saying, hey, let me be of service to this community. I want to make an impact. And then, obviously because you have the name of Edward Jones or whatever institution you work by, the hope is that then they call you, right, at that point to talk more in detail about financing. But I think that if there's anything I can learn personally, and I'm just kind of speaking out loud about that, like that is a great learning point for me from a marketing standpoint, from mortgage as well, and why I'm so passionate about this podcast and this community and just the people that I interact with is I'm not going to just post and say, hey, come and get your loan with me, right? But my hope is that if you see this content I'm putting out, if you see the interactions I'm having with the community, et cetera, you see that and you hope that, or my hope is that then you would trust me with your mortgage, right? So I think that that's a great way that you approach that. It's a low pressure sales approach, I guess, is what I would say. That
it did a couple things, like, and I'm so glad I had to do it.
Yeah.
Because I'd never want to do it again. I'll tell you that. but
if I tell you we're door knocking after this, you're out.
I could do it though.
You could.
I could do it. I could go and cold door knock and
sure.
But it's like the anxiety that it gives you. Just like anyone that's ever made a cold call, exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Of like that pit in your stomach, and you play through this whole conversation in your brain, like you almost have the conversation where you have it, and then it's like. But I remember when I was going through training, and I've always kept this. I actually have it on a note card in the back of my wallet. That action cures all fear.
I love that.
And I always thought that was like the thing that's like, just go and do it.
Yeah.
I learned how to introduce myself. I learned how to put, I put my foot in my mouth so many times. Or said,
But how many of those conversations did you have that really boosted your confidence,
The more you have.
Especially, and maybe we're just blessed in Iowa, but there's a lot of incredible people in this community, in this state that are probably more than happy to have a conversation with you.
COVID kind of ruined this whole training process. They changed their whole model after this. Yeah, so this was obviously way pre-COVID.
Sure.
But then COVID came around and they don't really do that much anymore. They still do a little bit of it.
Sure.
But, I just think it was a very humbling experience. But anyone that's in the sales industry or any type of contact, it's a contact sport.
Yeah.
You got to be reaching out to people or know how to introduce yourself or get yourself in front of people that are qualified, prospects or the ability to maybe do business with you at some point. And that's one thing that it did teach me is I didn't get I got some clients from door knocking, but it did take time. Right?
Sure.
It was one of those things of like, especially in the finance, like in our industry, it's it's very intimate. Same thing mortgages, because you get income, tax returns, all that stuff. It's very similar.
Know a lot about a person.
And Iowans are naturally pretty conservative, sheltered, so it did take time, but it was one that I did see it pay off, or at times where I got business. Now it's never been my main source of business by any means, but I still have some clients that'll talk about. Remember you knocked on my, that's how I got you. I
so
have a
cool.
handful. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so that is an inside look into how Cole made his phone ring to start. Now let's talk on the other side. So let's say once you get that phone to ring, and let's say somebody reaches out and says, hey, I'm kind of thinking I want to have you help me out. Walk me through your process on how you determine and dictate what their goals are, and not that you tell them, obviously, and then what's your advising process look like?
Yeah, so really,
for the average client.
Yeah, everything, I always say it's what's important to the client, right? So I'm always going to start, if someone's brand new to me and say we're doing the initial meeting, it's really just, hey, what are the pain points? What are the things that you really are aspiring to do? And whether that's, hey, I want to retire early. I'm 35 years old. I want to retire at 55. I don't want to wait till 65 or whenever it is. Mm-hmm. Or it's, I want to make sure I can pay for my kids' college.
Yeah.
It's all different. Like, your situation's different than mine. And I always make that, very clear early on to any new client or prospect of like, this is your plan.
Yeah.
It's not mine. So I'm just here to help navigate. And I would say a lot of times we're an emotional advisor.
Yeah.
If anything, but we also it's a lot of questioning, right?
Okay.
At first, and then I always say, then we navigate first. We got to build, hey, what are we trying to accomplish? And then we move into, what actions can we take to accomplish that? And that can be, a wide range of things. But I will say we try to build a financial plan for almost everyone. And a financial plan doesn't mean a retirement plan, right? It can be, hey, maybe, we want to have a better budget, or we want to save X amount next year or in the future, whatever it might be, or it is retirement. A lot of people think of it as just, retirement planning, but there's definitely a lot more.
More to it.
Yep, a lot more that goes into it.
Okay. So now, I think that is a great start. And what I would say is, like, obviously you can lay out the plan for them. How involved do you get with actually helping them be disciplined to follow that plan too, right? And obviously life changes, adapts. You always have to be regularly kind of changing that, I'm sure.
Yep.
But like, has that been a struggle, or is that something that you're fortunate because clients follow that pretty well? What's that look like?
Yeah, so it's a constant check in and adjust, right? Because it's not a rigid thing where we're like, hey, we're going to follow this straight line, right? Just like you said, goals change. You get a promotion, right? You get divorced, or or a death in the family. You inherit money.
Could be a positive or a negative.
Yep, and all of a sudden it goes a completely different path. You have another child you weren't expecting.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden the late bloomer comes in there. There's a lot of things.
Maybe your income gets cut in half because the mortgage rates go to 7.5%.
Exactly right.
Not talking about me.
But it's exactly as we're there to kind of navigate with you.
Yeah.
And I do see us as an accountability partner.
Yeah.
A lot of times of
have to be.
Hey, that's why I think a very underrated thing in our industry is how detailed of notes that we take. And
sure.
I'm one that I like to dictate my notes after.
Yeah.
And the main reason being is like the more detailed I can be, the more I can help them. Hey, you mentioned this the last time we met. We did our interview last year. You said you were going to pay off your credit card.
Have you done that yet?
Did you pay off your credit card? Mm-hmm. Right. And those are things that I think, most people, if they're saying the perception of the financial, we're not doing that. We're just doing budgeting or planning on paper, or the investment side a lot. I think that's a big misconception. Like, hey, we're just investors. We're just taking your money and investing.
Right. And you're just spending all your time studying the stock market and how should I move your money around, and like, it can get that kind of a stigma. I imagine
most people I think that aren't in the industry do think that
assume that
we're brokers, or we're buying and selling stocks or day trading. Like, that's very far from from what we're doing.
So cool. I love it. That's really good. I'm trying to think of where I want to kind of navigate next. I would say one of the big things that I've always appreciated over the years that I've known you is because of all the things that you have on your plate, you handle your day-to-day, what I would assume from my perspective, pretty well, right? And I'd love to have you kind of talk through, how do you discipline yourself? Are you time blocking? Are you, what is your day? What's an average day in Cole Jaeschke's world look like, I guess?
So I'm very structured, very routine, and that's just the nature of like the college football, the athlete in me. Like, always had to be there at this time. But I also, I'm a person that's striving, like you say, what my goals. I don't really have a retirement goal, but I'm a work optional guy.
Yep.
Like, I want to get to the point where, like, if I want to go to the office, I can, or I don't have to.
Sure.
That's like my benchmark
priority
at some
yours.
point.
Yep.
Yeah. But I'm very, very structured. I'm an early riser.
Yeah.
So I'm in the office generally 6:30.
Okay.
And I do kind of indirectly time block. I'm not a very rigid guy, like this section I'm doing this. But I have my kind of standards throughout the week when I do certain things. Like, I always say I'm flipping a different cap on, right? I'm financial advisor right now. Maybe I'm CFO of my brother's trucking company, this day, or I'm real estate investor on Friday.
Yeah.
I would say my days always do prioritize around serving my clients and my financial advisory practice.
Okay.
That's always
your number one.
That's my priority, right?
Yep.
That takes care of me, takes care of my family. That's number one. If there's a problem in that arena, that always goes above everything else.
Okay.
And then it's everything else is secondary of that. But I will say, I've grown our team.
Okay.
And that's been probably the number one reason, and my wife, those two things. Like, if she takes, care of things at home, I can't be as dedicated at work if things, if I'm splitting
aren't
duties.
dialed in at home.
If we're splitting duties more 50, and I'm not going to lie to anyone, my wife does almost
carries
everything.
the weight. Yeah.
I'm the guy in
it's
like
funny.
Christmas, I'm like, oh, what did we get?
What did we get the kids?
Yeah, what did we buy the kids? Oh, this is great for me.
It's funny you say that, because there was a night last week I was trying to call you and talk about something business related, and you literally said, Brady, I need to call you later. I'm making dinner for my son.
The one night I have, like, one night of the month I had my kids by myself.
And I could tell, I was like, you clearly are not very experienced with having to do that.
You're because like, his blood pressure's up.
You couldn't even talk on the phone. So props and shout out to Chelsea if we're touching on anything there, but that's great. So, okay, you mentioned about growing the team.
Yeah.
I want to kind of touch on, because we started off your journey, right? We kind of touched on that, but let's talk and dive into now. Full Swing Financial Planning is kind of yours and your business partner's baby, we can call it, right?
Yep.
And that's something that's new within the last, 12 months or so?
Yep, we just had our 1 year. 1 year.
Awesome. Well, first off, congratulations on that. That's awesome. But also just kind of touch on the brand, touch around the office, your team, kind of what's the dynamic there?
Yeah. And I would say for those who are not familiar with the financial advisory world or financial planning world, it's kind of the evolution. I went from Edward Jones, where I was an employee. Then I went independent, where I was a 1099 contractor. Now I kind of the third phase is the most autonomy, is like a full business owner.
Okay.
Still on the contractor side. But
sure.
Yeah, we decided, Cole Peterson, Bailey Ashbrook, two partners of mine, we decided to brand Full Swing Financial.
Yeah.
And it's really, we're doing a lot of the same things we've been doing for a lot of years, but now it's kind of our baby, right? We got full control of where we're going from a marketing standpoint, the team.
Yep.
And yeah, we've got I'm trying to think how many we got. I don't want to leave anyone out, and you start rattling names.
Yeah, it's easy to do, right?
So we got in the office, we got Bailey Ashbrook, who really, she's an advisor, but she really wears multiple caps. I would say, like me in the business, she's wearing the HR cap.
I happen to notice on the website she had COO as her title, so that's probably a fitting title.
Yep, and I have two, and she works kind of directly with Cole Peterson.
Yep.
They work hand in hand on serving clients together, but Bailey kind of oversees the staff as well. And
Got
then
it.
I have Alexa Ledley and Angie Halverson are both my direct assistants.
Okay.
And then we also have Emily Q, who works with Cole and Bailey.
Great.
So we do work kind of siloed a little bit, but we're also a team. We do a lot of stuff where we're collaborating.
Yep.
But my little
your clients are your clients. Yeah.
Yep. And it's been great. It's been a learning curve.
Yeah.
We do have an independent advisor, Eddie Doyle, who just runs basically
kind of his own business out of you guys.
Yep. And but it's been a learning curve. Mm-hmm. It's been great, but we're excited to see that growth, and we've had a lot of growth.
But
already.
how cool is it now? You have this brand that is yours, and it is something you can be proud of, right? And I've shared on other episodes before, but I still remember my days at Wells Fargo when I was known by that big red square, right? And not that it's always necessarily a bad thing, but the time that I was there was ironically a time where there was some negative stigma around that brand. And it negatively impacted me, even though I had nothing to do with it, right? Whereas now that you have this brand, and frankly, I do too with my podcast, my company, my team, we have control over that, right? And we want to be known in a positive light in our communities. We live in a small community. And so, I think it's so great that you guys have kind of chosen to go that route and build something you can be proud of.
I didn't plan on really going this route, but you brought a thought to my, we were talking about ChatGPT before, right? And I think every single person is going to be able to Google or ChatGPT something and get a great answer on things, but it's going to come back to relationships, right? So like you talk about Wells Fargo, there was no differentiation there, right? You were, whether it was Brady Hay or someone else there was nothing there, but now you've differentiated yourself as like you're creating a personal relationship with that client. So it's more than just
it's a trust thing, right? Yep. Because at the end of the day, that's really the part that we have control over, is having somebody in your corner you trust. Whether you're in mortgage or financial advising, you want to have somebody in your corner. And same thing with insurance or your hairdresser or any sort of life desire or need. You want to have that person you can rely on, and that's something that technology, like you said, frankly can't replace.
Nope.
Now, obviously, we as business owners have to learn and adapt to how to use the technology that we're given.
It's nice.
It is. It does. It helps our lives. But there's always kind of that thought, at least in my back of my head, is like, okay, well, as this technology continues to progress and develop and get better, how much of is it going to replace me? Like those things run through your mind, but the things we can control is the interactions and the people, right? ChatGPT can't interact with the people that are listening to this podcast or watching this TikTok or whatever it is. Like, I want to be the center of this so that I can truly advise to help you achieve your goals, right? And I think that's how you have chosen to do that too.
And there's still an intelligent emotional piece to my industry, to your industry, and that's where we talk about that a lot as a team. Yeah. Of like, we need to provide value other than just growing your dollars. Right.
Which is a great value.
Don't get me wrong. We want everyone to make as much money and do have the best investments of all time.
Yeah.
But it really comes back to that emotional side of like, where are we heading? How do we handle navigating the different check marks in life, or goods and bads?
Any examples of like additional values you would say that your team really stands out on, other than just checking in and?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the number one thing and a lot of people want to strive for the personalization, right? But I really think people just have a genuine sense of how much we care in our office, and I think our staff goes above and beyond on that. And I actually, driving here today, we have a client that stops in quite a bit, bakes. He's an older individual, retired.
Sure.
And he brings stuff in all the time, running flowers
today,
just for the staff. And like, those are things that people don't do that if they don't think that you care and care for them.
Yeah.
And I hope most of my clients, they say, oh yeah, he's done such a great job, but ultimately he treats us really,
just
really
cares
nice.
about us.
And I think our staff goes above and beyond on doing that, just being, very genuine. And that's what I love about Iowa.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shout out Iowa is like how close I think and how nice people are. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like indirect, there's a lot of, things that we can measure. It's not measurable that you put it, just more of a vibe that you can feel when you come into our office.
That was it was a test, but it's also like it's a testament to why I think that you and I align so well, because it's a direct representation of the way I want my business to be known as well. And that's beyond that, just me as a human being, right? I want, like, if there's one thing that I can say when somebody's speaking at my funeral, hopefully a long flipping time from now,
hopefully,
I want them to know that like Brady just really cared about anybody he interacted with, right? And I think that that's so cool that you guys feel that way too, and yeah, it's just it's an aspect of life that we have control over, right? And yeah, that's so cool that you haven't. We've talked about this, but you haven't made it through some of my other episodes and stuff. But this is probably the 4th or 5th time over the 10 to 15 episodes that I've done, 4th or 5th time that this has come up with people, and I can just tell that. That's why I think that we click so well, and why we've been able to partner well together, because we have a similar approach in that aspect. So. That's great. Anything else from a financial advising? Because I have a lot of other things that I know you handle and take care of that I want to touch on. Is there anything else on that sector of your business you'd love to touch on, or any advice you'd give anybody before we kind of move on to the next aspect?
I would say one thing, when people ask me about like what I do, and one of my favorite things about that is how much I've learned from my clients. That's one of the things that I get to cherry pick or learn, because I asked your story. Yeah. Right. So I have a lot of very, very wealthy, what I would consider wealthy. Yeah. That's a relative term. Sure. Someone might have $1 million. Someone might have 100,000.
Maybe even less than that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But I get a firsthand experience. I ask, and it's so funny. I'll get into meetings where it's like the client is the advisor to me, because I'm like, well, how did you start that business? Like, give me the steps. Like, and I'm just very curious. Yep. Right?
You're always learning.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that's catapulted some of my other businesses is my curiosity to learn, and it's also made me very well rounded of when people have unique issues. Yep. One, I have a lot of experience that I've came across not only personally, but I've maybe had other clients go through. Yeah. And it's one of my favorite parts about what I do.
Super cool.
Of getting to kind of interrogate people, of how they created their wealth.
Yeah, totally. And then you can take that and implement in your own life, or you can take and help your clients help them in a minute. Yeah. Right? Yep. That's so cool. I love it. All right. Now, one of the other bigger...
We flipping caps?
We are, yeah. So let's put your real estate cap on. Yeah. Because I know that's a passion of yours. Yep. Talk about how you ever even began in considering real estate as I was going to use the word career. It's not really your main career, but it is something you're passionate about and something you put a lot of time and effort into. So give the listeners an inside scope into Cole Jaeschke financial real estate investor world.
Yeah, I've always been, I was always interested in real estate. I don't know where that curiosity came from, because I really don't have any, other than farmland. Yep. That's most of my family. They're tied into the farmland side, but they don't have rental properties or apartment complexes, anything like that. But I always knew, like the physical asset, having that, there was long-term value in that. And I'm a cash flow guy. Okay. So I'm like, how can I acquire an asset and have the asset pay for itself? Mm-hmm. Like, that's something that I was like, okay, as a person, early in my career, I didn't have 25, 50, 30% to put down on a 4-unit apartment complex or an 8-unit. But I knew that, I might be able to flip a house or buy a single family home with the cash I had. So
is that where you got your start? You started in single family
and
flips?
Yep. I did a flip. First ever piece of real estate was a flip. I made like $12,000.
Woo!
Yeah. So it was, and I did a lot, and I'm pretty, again, I'm it's wild. I'm pretty handy, so I did a lot of the work myself. And my dad's got a construction background, so I had a lot of resources in that. So I knew how to do a lot of that stuff, which was nice. But I made money, and that's a good and a bad thing when you make money right away. I'm like, oh, this is nice. But
it's almost too easy, right?
Yeah, but it did take a longer period of time. When you look back at like really what I made per hour, like did I make that much?
Right. Put a lot of time into it.
Yep. But what it did is I learned. Right? I gained a little bit more knowledge in there, and then I did a couple more flips, and then I kind of said, okay, I don't really want to flip anymore. This is a little too much work because I'm doing better in my financial advisory business. I need to spend my hours there, serve my clients there. But I'm like, I do want to be an owner of real estate. So I started to look at different, and really it was me just kind of reverse engineering what do I want to own. And the easiest thing to acquire for anyone to start is single family homes. And then it kind of catapults to duplexes, triplexes, apartments, maybe commercial buildings. And that's really my evolution. I kind of went that route of flip to single family home, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and then I got
scale from there.
A scale from there, and then I've kind of as it's grown and changed. It's interesting how any real estate investor, you'll kind of find as you get more experience, you'll find really kind of your niche of what you really want to acquire.
What your passion is.
Now, it's gotten a lot harder, right? Like real estate's tough when you got, interest rates 7, 8, 9, 10% versus when I was doing flips, it was I could get a 3%, mortgage.
On an investment property.
It was like wild to think
about. It's a whole different world for sure.
So,
but I mean, in your like you said, start small, don't be intimidated by it, right? What else? I mean, from an advice standpoint, I guess, what else would you advise to somebody who's like curious about owning real estate, whether it's a primary investment? What's like 2 things that you would recommend?
And I didn't really get onto this, but leverage is one thing that you can leverage real estate, right? You can't just go and buy, say you want to have a $200,000 investment in the stock market. You have to have $200,000 to
get that.
Right? For real estate, you could maybe buy an asset that's $200,000 and you need to put $30,000, $40,000, maybe less, depending on what it is. Into that. And like, there's no other arena for someone getting started out that has little means that you can actually do that. Now, there's still other qualifications there and things to get there, but I think anyone that's interested, in that, in being a real estate investor, where it might be, is first educate and then find yourself a mentor. Find someone that's done it. But gosh, I've tried a lot of things that God, if I would have just asked someone,
learn the hard way.
Yeah, I definitely have. Now I've done pretty well on most of my stuff, but there's things where I'm like, I probably didn't need to get in there. Again, it's like a time thing of like, what's your time worth? And how much time did I spend on that? Did I really come out positive on that or not? Probably not. There's quite a few of those scenarios. Yeah.
So I think just to kind of recap that, so the reason why he's passionate about it is because you can access and have access to an asset that takes less money than what that value of that asset is. And for context for everybody listening, he's basically meaning utilizing loans and other people's money in a sense that you do pay interest on, and we want to make sure that that's clear. But if you figure in the interest into the cash flow, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? So that's one of the great parts about real estate investing. So, okay, so you've...
Hold on, can I say something? I want to say if I had to do it over again, this is one thing that I'm like, now that I know what I know, I would have definitely tried to buy like a condo or a duplex, something with multiple 4 units or less, right? This is kind of alley-ooping into your arena or house hacking, things of such of there. I would have definitely went down that route. My first mortgage
as a primary residence.
Yeah, as a primary residence, and that would have been my first investment. Looking back, if I would have known how kind of the world works and what you can qualify for, instead of me buying. Now, my first house, my wife and I ever bought together, we flipped. Yeah. So we lived there, but we flipped.
You were working on it as you did.
Yep. So that was one. That was technically my second flip, but we were kind of redoing it for ourselves.
Sure.
But going back, anyone that's younger or has never had a primary residence and looking, I strongly, that's something, that's the easiest way to catapult you into the real estate world.
So for context for everybody that's listening, what he's referring to is you have the ability as a primary residence, if you intend to live in the property, you can do less down from a down payment standpoint on that home. And so you can access and have ownership in this property for way less out of pocket than if you were to buy it as a rental property. So what Cole's referring to is technically called house hacking. And by doing that, you can buy a property as your primary residence, put as little as 3% down as a first-time home buyer, use the rest of your money to fix it up, make it improved.
It's up to 4 units, right?
That's correct.
So you need to live in one of the units, and technically the
you could rent out the other 3 to pay for it.
Exactly. And then at some point, you either sell the property or you move out, whatever it might be, and it's all of a sudden you have the units there.
Exactly. And from a guideline standpoint, all we care about from an underwriting standpoint is that you intend to occupy the property within 60 days of owning it.
Yep.
What you choose to do with after that is kind of up to you.
I've shared that with a lot of younger people that have asked about real estate. Like, that's especially when you don't have kids and stuff to worry. If you're just getting done with school, say you're just getting done with school, you got a little savings. I guess the perfect way to get started in the real
when it's so much easier to attain, a 3% down payment than it is going after a 20 or 25. So it's a great way to do it. And, assuming that the history continues to repeat itself from an appreciation standpoint, your value is going to do nothing but go up on your property, knock on wood. And, if you continue to invest and like Cole said, make the property better than what it was when you bought it, you're going to increase the value and hopefully sell it for more down the road. So, and then on the flip side, one of the big things that I think we want to touch on here is when owning real estate, it's more than just cash flowing and having the payment pay for itself. The big key with that is that it's paying down that principal balance, right? Yeah. So having the amortization be able to take that and get rid of it. If you do hold and own real estate for a long period of time, you're sitting now on a physical asset that you can sell for some great dollars. So
I mean, everything that's kind of the hidden appreciation that you don't see, right? Everyone worries about cash flow right away.
Yeah.
Because you don't, if you're new to the investment world, you probably don't have the resources to like, hey, I need to fund an extra $1,000 a month into this property. You probably don't have that.
Right.
So it's one of those things. If it's cash flowing, you're seeing that's the direct thing you can see visually every month. It pays the mortgage, pays the taxes, pays the maintenance. But yeah, you make that payment, and maybe it's $400 or $500 every month that's going to the principal pay down, and then hopefully we're capturing 3 to 5% of appreciation. So if you hold that property for 4 or 5 years, there's 25% hopefully gain of the value. Now it doesn't always work that way, but if you're continuing to increase rents, things of such, most likely the appreciation of the building is going to follow.
I love it. Out of everything you've owned, whether it's a flip property, single family, you've owned multi-units, you've owned apartment buildings, you've owned commercial spaces, you and I own an Airbnb together. All the sector, what would you say has been your favorite thing to invest in, and what's kind of your reasoning behind that?
I definitely like, the hardest thing that I think I do, but I like, is the value add space, which is like, buying a property that probably needs some money, right? But and then making that into something new, or upgrading it, or maybe increasing the rents.
Sure.
That's a lot of the cases, and some of the properties that you're getting discounts on, maybe the rents have been stale or the same for multi-years, and those are ways, but you have to put some money or have capital to put into it. I love the value add space, but ultimately I would say my favorite is getting in the commercial, more industrial space, because it's more passive. Right. Generally the tenants are taking care of the property already.
Sure.
Right? They're less needy. You get individual, say you own an apartment complex. There's just a lot more things that can go wrong. You need, a lot more hands-on. You
need property management. You're
taking a lot more phone calls. So, but I will say, for anyone that's, again, always thinking the cap on of all my best deals have been stuff that's been off market or from a relationship based. Right? It wasn't something I found on Google. Or Zillow.
You're not scrolling Zillow and finding a property.
And that's that contact, right? I've developed relationships.
Connecting, having conversations, being connected with the right people that are going to have those opportunities for you, so you can take advantage without competition, right? I think back to even just the time when you and I bought our Airbnb together, we were able to find that.
Wild.
It fell into our lap, right? Like I remember we were on the golf course talking about like, hey, what would it look like for us to buy a vacation rental together? And literally it was probably less than a week later. Not only was the opportunity on our plate, but also you were flying down to Arizona
on a Friday, and we're offering on a house.
Next thing you knew, we were under contract, right? But that all came amidst relationships and people we knew, right? And it wasn't like that listing was in our email or it popped up on a notification on our phones. It was about the relationships and the connections. So if it's something that you're passionate about, and if anybody that's listening to this wants to invest in that, you just got to have more conversations. So that's very good. All right. Kind of the last piece that I haven't touched on with you yet is a great plug for this as well, is that you and Cole, your business partner, have started your own podcast, and Bailey as well. How did that come about, and like what's kind of unwound from that as well?
Yeah, so I would say it's evolved a little bit, right? Okay. But it started just kind of like as a pun with the Cole and Cole, right? How to money with Cole and Cole is kind of a
same name, different spelling. Yeah.
Funny thing.
Yeah.
But it was really like we just wanted to educate, on financial topics, and that was really the start. So we really focused at the beginning. Now we've done a lot of episodes. And it's really evolved to where it was mainly just Cole and I, to now Bailey is really the moderator of the podcast.
Kind of running the show.
Yeah, she runs the show. She does a great job, and she's really evolved into that of like, and it's, I would say, shifted a little bit more to where it's finance / entrepreneurship and leadership. Yeah. Things similar to this.
Sharing your connections.
You're having conversations. People love to hear stories of entrepreneurs, or even, people like how they got to where they're at. And I think that's a big thing. That's really where the podcast ours has evolved to. And it's the same thing as like us getting to learn, from a client standpoint. We got to get to sit and grill a guy who owns an electrical business, his story from going from 0 employees to 55. Yeah.
And you get to learn. Yeah. You get to experience how he did it, right? And more importantly, just share your heart behind it, right? And it's the thing that content and social media and TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and all these platforms have really opened up the opportunity for us to be able to share who we are without having to be in face-to-face with people. Like, people are consuming this content every day. And so I love that you guys have chosen the opportunity to dive into that space head first and just kind of take it on. And by doing that, not only are you building your brand.
Brady's been a guest on the podcast.
Yeah, tune in. I'll link the episode in the description below. But
you made a good call on rates.
They haven't gone down yet, and that's exactly what I said in that, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
But no, here's the thing that I love about it is like you're using it, as a platform to build yourselves, right? And obviously it's helping build your brand, but even more importantly, you're building up those that you have on it, right? From a guest standpoint. And that's the same thing that I hope to do with this. Everybody I want to bring on is just an extension of people that I've interacted with, and I want to give you guys a platform to share the great impact you're having. Because if you and I don't sit down and have this conversation, the people that are watching this have no clue who Cole Jaeschke is, and I want to be able to highlight you because I think you're an incredible human. And that goes to all the other guests I've had and hope to have in the future as well. That's the cool part about this, is it really allows us to increase that exposure.
I love that phrase, an extension. We say it a lot, extension of our office.
Yeah.
That's our partners, whether it's an attorney or a mortgage advisor.
Yeah.
They're an extension of our team. And I think that's, again.
You have to have that referral network, right?
It comes back to the relationships.
Yeah. Right? And even though you're not a mortgage guy, you have me in your corner that you can trust with your clients, and vice versa. If I need if I have a client that needs financial advice, I feel very, very comfortable referring them to you because I know your professionalism, the heart behind what you do. It just aligns super well. So that's really great. I know the last question, and I know you're super nervous about it. But before we jump into that, I always like to give everybody an opportunity. Is there anything else that you would love to share, or any part of your journey? It can be golf, it can be family, it can be financial advising, real estate, football. What else have you got? Anything else that you just like? What's your final? How would you like to leave everybody, I guess, today?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm going to come back to this thing of being in the moment and being present, right? Yeah. And this is where I get this question all the time. How am I doing? Or how am I doing with my money? And I always say, compared to what?
Yeah.
And that's something I always want people to think of, like, don't get caught too much in the social media world of someone's got a Cadillac Escalade, or someone's got a place in Arizona, right? Hone into what is important to you and narrow down and focus on that, and try to block out yourself from comparing yourselves to others. I hate the comparison world, and we get it a lot. I get so many people like, well, what are other people our age? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Every person needs a different plan.
Well, maybe it's not a priority to you, right? So that's...
And it kind of makes me sad at times, because I know people are focused on the wrong thing, right? Yeah. They're focused on, comparing themselves to others versus how do I just get better?
Right.
How do I get better with my situation?
And you can use it in a positive way too, right? Yep. Like if you see somebody else that you quote unquote envy,
you can aspire.
You can have that and use that as drive to want to achieve things that other people have, right? But do it at your own pace, I think, is the kind of point that you should drive home there, is like...
And don't let the material items dictate the success.
Yeah.
Like that shouldn't be your scale.
Because every one of those material items they have could have a big fat loan attached to it that they're paying a bunch of interest on that you don't know about, It's
one of the wildest things, and obviously I can't talk about clients' business and stuff, but I see, like, there's the people that I'm like, you would think they have no money and they're worth $10 million, and you think someone's got $10 million and they're
underwater.
Negative net worth.
Yeah.
I've seen it on both sides. So it's very, I'm sure you have too.
I have, for sure.
Very wild.
But it's just, again, it comes down to staying focused on what your goals are, what your desires are.
I'm speaking to myself there, present.
Same. Literally me too.
Being in the moment, because I'm very future. I'm very like, where am I going next?
Yeah.
Like, what business?
Which isn't a bad place to be, right? Rather than reflecting on the past. You know, you want to be able to have control over your life, but just know to do it in moderation and do it at your own pace, with guidance and trust with great people like us, right? That's really what we want to be. Is we want to be resources to help you achieve your goals, whether your goals are as small as owning, one real estate, or your goals can be as small as you want them to be, or they can be as big as you want them to be, and we're here to help you achieve them regardless. So I think we've touched on a ton of incredible things.
That's awesome.
Cole, I got to say thanks again from a personal standpoint, just like, thanks for being a mentor. Thanks for being a friend. I can't say it enough that like you've made an impact on my life. You make me want to be a better person, and I'm thankful for that. Excited.
Make me blush here.
We can cry if you want. I can get some Kleenexes.
No, man, I appreciate it, and I always love telling stories and talking, and I love to answer questions. So it's always fun, and appreciate you being a guest on our podcast. And I loved it. I enjoyed this time.
For sure, man. I'm thankful that you're able to come on. And if anybody's listening to this and wants to reach out to Cole and his team, I'll be sure to link all their information below. Full Swing Financial Planning out of Fort Dodge, Iowa is their business. And they do an incredible job. They'd love to help you guys out, and it can be as simple as asking 2 questions, and it can be as in depth as you want it to be. So be sure to reach out to Cole if you guys have any questions. I'll link his information in the description below. And to leave everybody, one final question that I end all of the podcasts on, but the pressured question of the day is: where's the best chicken wings that you've ever had?
I'm not a huge chicken wing,
which is fine,
chicken wing guy, but I'm gonna say Hooters, and it wasn't because of the wings.
Oh, all right.
I'm just kidding.
Everybody, thanks for tuning in today. This has been another episode of the Brady Hay Mortgage Team podcast. We look forward to seeing you guys next episode. We'll see you guys.